Formula One seasons seem to end with Red Bull in the headlines for the past couple of years now, and not just because they've been winning championships. Controversies and driver tensions are common in the F1 garage, especially when the number 2 seat is concerned. Let's look at Ricciardo's return to Red Bull, the potential for him to take Checo's place, and tensions in the Red Bull garage. First and foremost, Ricciardo's surprise return to Red Bull. The prodigal son finally returns to the team with which he saw his greatest success, producing some of the most iconic moments Red Bull Racing had in the hybrid era. The return may not be as ceremonious as some Honey Badger fans would have wanted, but it could be the change Daniel needs in his career if he wants to find a racing seat and genuine pace. The return was prompted by Daniel's early departure from McLaren F1 following an incredibly poor season, and despite there being no hard feelings over his contract ending early, everybody saw it coming from a mile away. McLaren went from giving Ferrari a serious challenge for third in 2021 to becoming a mid-tier team in 2022, and as much as we love the Aussie, it was mostly due to his performances. Lando Norris was massively outperforming him in the same machinery, and has scored an overwhelming majority of McLaren's points this season. Because of those performances, nobody was really expecting Danny to be picked up by any team on the grid for a full driving seat, despite his departure from McLaren being announced early in the summer. So it was a pleasant surprise when he found out Ricciardo was going to be deeply involved with the sport and would be returning to Red Bull as a reserve driver for the next season. This not only keeps Ricciardo in the loop for a potential seat, but it also opens up a plethora of interesting possibilities that we can get into. Moving on, as the Aussie brought in to pressurize Sergio Perez. Due to all the nostalgia and good memories attached with Daniel's time at Red Bull, nobody questioned the decision during the early celebrations and congratulations. However, fans and pundits got a chance to think about the decision as the season ended, and we finally got time off from the hectic race schedule. A prevailing theory was Danny Ric being brought back into the Red Bull loop to pressure Perez into performing at a higher pace, keeping him on his toes per se. F1 may be a cutthroat sport, but even before Helmut Marko categorically denied the rumors, one could see the holes in the theory. For one, the advisor to Red Bull teams pointed out the positive relationship between Perez and the team. Some may contest this fact over a few occasions where Checo's race had been compromised for Max's benefit, but that reflects on the team's strategy to score maximum points. Now, for how much Red Bull actually values their number 2 drivers. Checo has been an extraordinary addition to the Red Bull roster and was instrumental in helping Max win his first championship, helping Red Bull break their trophy drought, and helping them to their first double championship since the days of Sebastian Vettel. His performances were rewarded with a rarely extended contract from a team that enabled Checo to compete and win races at a level he never previously could in his career. However, former Red Bull star David Coulthard believes the provision of that ability to fight at the top is exactly why Checo shouldn't look into challenging the status quo too much. Courtyard pointed out that despite solid performances and a few impressive race wins across his Red Bull tenure, Checo has been massively outperformed by Max at most races and should accept his position as the number 2 driver. Coulthard thinks Max is rightfully the focal point of Red Bull's strategy to consistently win races and championships. Checo may play a very good support role, but if the team orders like the ones given in Brazil bother him too much, he's welcome to leave the franchise. Let's look at how Verstappen could potentially bully Checo out of Red Bull. The season ended on unexpectedly bitter terms for the Red Bull driver pairing. Verstappen was allowed to go past Checo in the Brazilian Grand Prix in a bid to pass the Alpine blocking both Red Bull cars. The deal, or at least the deal communicated to Checo, was that the Mexican would be allowed to retake his position on the last lap if Max failed to overtake Alonso. However, Verstappen refused to give the position back and cost Checo a couple of valuable championship points in the context of his battle with Leclerc for P2 in the Drivers' Championship. Max gave his reasons for the behavior, but those are irrelevant to the larger context of Max's history with his teammates. He either outperforms them so comprehensively that there isn't any point of tension, like Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly, or toxic competitiveness creeps into the garage. We all remember the crash between the 2 Red Bulls in Azerbaijan 2018 between Max and Ricciardo, which was the culmination of rising aggression from Max in his chase to become the best. The Dutch hotshot seemed to be getting along much better with Perez, but that seemed to only be the case until the Mexican was helping him win races, even with no championship points of consequence being at stake for himself. Max didn't want to let Checo pass because he thinks Perez purposefully crashed back during qualifying for the Monaco Grand Prix in an attempt to start ahead of Max. If Max keeps pushing Checo's buttons like this, despite the Mexican proving himself to be a reliable driver for the team and a solid teammate, there are other teams who would really value those qualities. Now, for the possibility of Ricciardo finding his way to a driver's seat at Red Bull. Let's say Checo does leave Red Bull, be it because of Max, his own performance, or a simple case of contract expiration. Could Daniel Ricciardo pick up the pieces and land one of the most desired positions in motorsports? Lead Sky Sports commentator and Formula One pundit David Croft believes Ricciardo simply isn't the future of Red Bull racing, even if he manages to land a racing seat alongside Verstappen in the upcoming few years. It's only going to be a couple of seasons. Croft's reason for this belief was simple: age. Danny Ric is currently 33 and will be halfway through 34 before he gets any conceivable opportunity to replace Checo. Very few F1 drivers can maintain a high level of performance into their mid to late 30s like Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso, but only Lewis races for a team fighting at the top of the tables. When we take into consideration the time off Ricciardo will take before he gets a chance to race again, the concept makes more sense. Even if he's on the Red Bull simulator and test driving the car in between races, those experiences are far from the intensity of qualifying and the racecraft required to take the flag on Sunday. Who knows how much the time off will affect Ricciardo's ability to adapt to the new regulations and car design, something he struggled with in 2022 as well. Next up, why Croft thinks Ricciardo can't bring pressure on Checo even if he wanted to. Croft and Formula E driver Karun Chandhok are both very interested to see how Ricciardo is going to do in Red Bull machinery despite the limitations non-race conditions hold. We all remember the confidence Daniel had in the brakes of the hybrid-era Red Bull cars and how well it complemented his driving style, so seeing how well he gels with the modern-era car compared to Perez is pretty interesting. David has a bit more belief in Ricciardo's ability to merge, and age is the most important barrier to him, but Chandhok isn't so optimistic. Rest assured, he believes Daniel has the skills and experience to be an important addition to the team itself, but may have changed too much from his race-winning stint with his former team. Not only have sports regulations changed, but the Red Bull strategy has also considerably shifted from a no-team orders approach, allowing drivers to race each other. Karun further pointed out how both Max Verstappen and his position in the team have evolved, and there is a very clear number one, number two dynamic that can be hard to digest for most drivers at the highest level. As long as Checo accepted this approach, the team found success, so Crofty may be right when he said that Checo and Ricciardo are just two very different, almost incomparable drivers. Both have race-winning abilities and attractive qualities, but the races they win and the way they win them are very different. And finally, Sergio Perez has new plans for next season. It was pretty hard to think about Perez in terms of title contention in his first season with Red Bull because of how far ahead Lewis and Max were compared to the rest of the pack and how hotly contested their rivalry at the time was. Even this year, Checo's stellar performances in the first half of the season were somewhat overshadowed by Max's surge in the championship lead and Leclerc's raw pace in qualifying. The Mexican admitted to the slump he faced after a solid start to the 2022 season, which buried his championship bid before it ever properly began. Perez believes his consistency across the season and the reliability of the Red Bull machinery will be central to his ability to win the championship next season, and that's exactly what he intends to do. Checo highlighted the need for consistency since day one if he wants to fight Max for the title, and it's a daunting task even then. However, Checo is confident in the form he's found late in his career. Some may think Perez could have done better in the Red Bull had he been given the opportunity to drive such a competitive car earlier on, but Checo thinks he's hit his stride very recently and is thoroughly enjoying driving the RB18. He's gonna need all those skills and confidence he can muster though, and use any fire he has in him over the ugly incident at the Brazilian Grand Prix to take the fight to his teammate turned rival. And with all that, that's a wrap on this video. Who do you think is gonna race next to Max Verstappen in the Red Bull once Checo takes his leave from the team? And could a proper return to his old team be on the cards for the Honey Badger? Let us know in the comments below. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to subscribe for more F1 updates. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.